Have you ever watched a television show so beloved that it seemed immortal only for it to vanish almost overnight? For millions around the world, The Benny Hill Show was exactly that. For decades, it defined laughter. Fast, mischievous, and irresistibly absurd. But behind the laughter was one sketch, one brief scene that would change everything. What was once adored suddenly became offensive. The same audiences that once laughed began to question. And just like that, one of television's greatest comedy empires collapsed. This is the untold story of how a single moment ended an era and transformed the face of comedy forever. Before he became a household name, Benny Hill was just Alfred Hawthorne Hill, a quiet boy from Southampton, England, born in the mid-1920s. Even his birth year was uncertain. Some records said 1924, others 1925. His father owned a shop selling surgical instruments, a trade far removed from show business, yet entertainment ran deep in the family's veins. His grandfather had been a clown in a traveling circus, and that spirit of performance lingered in the young boy's imagination. Life, however, was far from glamorous. Alfred worked a string of ordinary jobs delivering milk, stacking shelves, driving cars, even playing drums. Yet every role taught him something. He learned to watch people closely, their gestures, habits, and quirks, when they thought no one was watching. Those small details would one day form the essence of his comedy. Then came the Second World War, and Alfred's path shifted once more. He joined the Royal Electrical and Mechanical Engineers, where he repaired vehicles and engines. Later, he became a driver and searchlight operator, guiding beams of light through the dark skies to track enemy aircraft. But it wasn't until he joined the Combined Services Entertainment Unit that his true gift revealed itself. Performing before exhausted soldiers desperate for a smile, Alfred discovered something profound: comedy could do more than amuse. It could heal. His quick wit and playful nature lifted spirits in moments of despair, and that realization changed his life. After the war, Alfred set his sights on the stage. He admired the great British music hall comedians who could make an audience roar with slapstick and song, but it was an American radio host, Jack Benny, who inspired him most. Jack Benny's humor wasn't about shouting or shock. It was about timing, silence, and the art of the pause. Alfred studied him closely and, in tribute, adopted his name. From then on, he was Benny Hill, the man who would make the world laugh. His big break came in 1947 with Variety Bandbox, a BBC radio program that showcased up-and-coming comedians. Benny's quick timing and character transformations impressed listeners, but he soon realized that radio couldn't capture what made him truly special. His comedy was physical, his face, his movements, his ability to transform in an instant. So, by 1950, he turned to the new and exciting medium of television. There, his expressive performances flourished. Every raised eyebrow, every exaggerated stumble, every mischievous glance became part of his signature style. The early 1960s proved to be a turning point. Hill starred in the anthology series Benny Hill in 1962, portraying a new character every episode. 2 years later, he shocked critics by playing Nick Bottom in a televised version of A Midsummer Night's Dream. Beneath the clownish exterior was genuine acting talent, and his ability to blend Shakespearean gravitas with comedic instinct impressed even his harshest reviewers. On radio, Benny Hill time allowed him to parody pop icons like the Beatles and fictional heroes like James Bond, all while introducing recurring characters such as Fred Scuttle, the bumbling worker, and the hapless Harry Hill. By the mid-1960s, Benny Hill had risen from a shop clerk's son to one of Britain's most promising entertainers. And he was just getting started. On January 15, 1955, The Benny Hill Show premiered on the BBC, and television comedy would never be the same. Hill's format was unlike anything audiences had seen before. Instead of traditional stand-up routines, he created a whirlwind of short sketches, musical parodies, and absurd scenarios drawn from the spirit of British music halls. Each episode felt like a variety show with no rules. He mixed satire, slapstick, and surreal humor into one explosive hour of laughter. When the show moved to Thames Television in 1969, it grew even larger in scale. Now, Hill had the resources to stage elaborate musical numbers and grand comedic sequences. His brand of humor, visual, fast-paced, and universal crossed language barriers. By the 1970s, The Benny Hill Show was airing in over 140 countries. Audiences from Britain to Australia to America watched with delight as Benny's chaos unfolded. You didn't need translation to laugh at his antics. His brand of comedy was purely visual, powered by movement and timing. Central to the show's identity was its closing sequence, the frenetic chase set to the saxophone tune Yakety Sax. Policemen, grannies, nurses, and young women would chase Benny through parks, streets, and corridors in double speed, a signature gag that became instantly recognizable across the world. The song itself became synonymous with silliness. Decades later, hearing it still evokes laughter and nostalgia for an era when comedy was simple, fast, and free-spirited. In the early 1980s, Hill introduced Hill's Angels, a troupe of glamorous dancers whose intricate routines added sparkle to the show. Fans adored them, but critics accused Hill of reducing women to visual props. These accusations began to shadow his success, though the show remained wildly popular. At its peak in 1971, it drew over 21 million viewers in the United Kingdom, an extraordinary feat. In the United States, it earned Emmy nominations, and in 1984, Hill received the prestigious Rose d'Or Award, securing his place among Europe's television elite. Yet fame has a way of hiding cracks beneath the surface. By the mid-1980s, a cultural shift was brewing. Society was beginning to re-examine gender roles, and the humor that once seemed cheeky now appeared out of touch. The Benny Hill Show, once a symbol of fun and freedom, was suddenly the subject of uncomfortable questions. Then came the sketch that changed everything. It was meant to be lighthearted, a parody of a beauty pageant, a theme Hill had played with before. Contestants strutted across the stage in glamorous outfits, while Benny, playing a smirking host, made suggestive remarks. But something about this sketch felt different. There was no clever punchline, no comedic twist, just lingering shots that made viewers uneasy. What had once been considered harmless now felt wrong. Critics pounced. Newspapers called the sketch tasteless and outdated. Feminist organizations condemned it as degrading. Even longtime fans began to question their laughter. What had changed wasn't only the comedy, it was the audience. The outrage over the sketch became a cultural flashpoint. For years, people had criticized Hill's show as sexist, but now they had a clear example. It was no longer a debate over taste, it was about values. The Benny Hill Show had become a relic of another era, a reminder of how quickly humor could cross from funny to offensive in a changing world. At the same time, a new generation of comedians was rewriting the rules. The alternative comedy movement was sweeping through Britain, led by sharp, politically charged performers like Ben Elton. Co-writer of The Young Ones and a regular on Saturday Night Live, Elton represented a new kind of humor, socially aware, critical, and unapologetically modern. He targeted Benny Hill directly, accusing his sketches of perpetuating misogyny and even contributing to a culture that normalized harassment. His words divided the country. Some praised him for speaking out. Others saw his comments as unfair attacks on a harmless entertainer. But Elton's critique resonated with a new audience, one that saw Hill's brand of slapstick as crude and outdated. The media joined the debate. The Independent argued that Hill was not dangerous, merely a man out of his time. Q magazine ridiculed Elton's outrage, joking that blaming Benny Hill for society's problems was like blaming pianists for poaching elephants. Still, the tide had turned. The Broadcasting Standards Council reinforced calls for higher moral standards in entertainment. What once passed as cheeky fun now seemed inappropriate for primetime television. By the late 1980s, the laughter was fading. Ratings in Britain declined as audiences turned toward newer, edgier comedians. While Hill's reruns continued to draw viewers abroad, his home audience had largely moved on. Behind the scenes, the show had become expensive to produce, costing around $450,000 per episode, equivalent to more than $1.4 million today. With falling ratings, public criticism, and soaring production costs, Thames Television made a fateful decision. In 1989, after 21 years on the air, the Benny Hill Show was officially cancelled. The cancellation shocked fans worldwide. For Benny Hill, it marked the end of an extraordinary career. He tried to reinvent himself with Benny Hill's World Tour in 1991, aiming to win back his global audience. Only one episode, Greetings from New York, was ever completed, reuniting him with longtime collaborators like Henry McGee, Bob Todd, and Sue Upton. But the spark was gone. The world had changed, and Hill no longer fit within it. Off-screen, Benny Hill lived a life that surprised many who knew his fame. Despite his wealth, he remained frugal, renting small apartments and mending his own clothes. He preferred discount groceries over lavish meals and rarely sought luxury. He never married and kept his personal life almost entirely private, giving rise to endless speculation. To the public, he was a man of laughter. In private, he was quiet, solitary, and reflective. In early 1992, Hill suffered a heart attack and was later diagnosed with kidney failure. Doctors urged him to undergo treatment, but he refused. On April 20, 1992, Benny Hill was found dead in his armchair, the victim of heart thrombosis. He was 68 years old. In a cruel twist of fate, a new job offer arrived for him that very day, an opportunity he would never see. Benny Hill's story is one of triumph and tragedy, humor and heartbreak. He rose from obscurity to become one of the most recognized comedians in the world. Yet in the end, the laughter that made him famous was the same force that destroyed him. His fall wasn't just about one sketch. It was about a world that had changed faster than he could. The beauty pageant parody may have been the breaking point, but it was also a reflection of a broader transformation. Society had evolved, and comedy had to evolve with it. Even so, Benny Hill's legacy remains impossible to ignore. His influence echoes in generations of comedians who came after him, from the physical antics of Mr. Bean to the absurd humor of Saturday Night Live. His timing, expression, and visual wit helped shape modern comedy as we know it. Ultimately, Benny Hill's downfall was not about malice, but about time. What once seemed innocent became inappropriate, and what once united audiences began to divide them. Yet behind every chase, every pratfall, and every laugh, there was a man who only ever wanted to make people happy. He succeeded perhaps too well, and when the laughter faded, it left behind a bittersweet silence. That is the story of the scene that ended the Benny Hill Show, a scene that didn't just bring down a legend, but marked the moment when the world of comedy itself grew up.